All right, it is 6 o'clock and I will call to order the Plainfield Charter Township Board meeting for April 24th, 2023. We'll begin our meeting with the invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Bill.
Next 2 months are very patriotic months for us, so I've selected this particular prayer. It says, God bless the red, white, and blue. Dear Lord, I fought for freedom for many nights and days. It's now on bended knee, I come to you. These words, please hear me pray. For all my friends and patriots who never said a word, just raised their hands and gave a nod, and then they were asked to serve. Please honor them and hold them. Your love keep them from harm. May they find some peace tonight in your loving arms. For all who love this country and stand up so brave and free, true, it's only for her rights and we fight. God bless the red, white, and blue. Amen. Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone. Ordinarily, right now, I would open the floor for public comment, but I'm not sure we have any public here. Would that be a correct statement? Okay, then we will forego that and move right on to the review of our consent agenda. Without any questions, comments, concerns from the board, I would seek a motion for the approval of the agenda, including the consent agenda and accounts payable.
I move to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda and accounts payable.
Thank you,
Second.
Kathy. Support?
Second.
Thank you, Jack. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hagedorn.
Yes.
Ms. Beatty.
Yes.
Mrs. Merle. Yes. Mr. Pfaff.
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes.
Okay, moving on to our new business for this evening. Item A is to consider entering into an agreement with Meter Public Funds for investment management. Cameron, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll let Mike come up while I introduce him just a little bit. So the thought here is that we have sufficient funds in the township's accounts that we want to make sure are earning the most interest possible. And to do that, Warren has taken a number of approaches, but we think hiring a professional to do that on our behalf will lead to a better return. And so that's what we're going to consider tonight. Warren has looked at a number of options, and he and I both met with Mike, and this is the one that Warren is presenting. So we're going to let Mike talk about the service that he provides, kind of present to you what he can do for the township, and then we'll kind of open it up for discussion after that.
Sir, good evening, everyone.
Can you hit the button on your, make sure there's a green light.
How's that?
Perfect.
That
Thank
works
you.
better? Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for having me this evening. Warren asked me to try and keep it to under an hour, so we'll try and get you out of here by then. So a little bit about Meter Public Funds. You may have seen some of this information that I'm going to show you already. Meter Public Funds is a professional investment advisor that works exclusively with public entities. We have over 350 public entity clients across the country. Here in Michigan, we have about 35 clients. That includes the city of Lansing, Delhi Township, also over in Ingham County. We work with all the way to the other side of the state, Macomb Community College. Over here, we work with Holland Board of Public Works. We work with Granville Public Schools, Wyoming Public Schools, a couple of other school districts, really across the state that we work with on this type of role. So the biggest difference between us and the relationships that you have already had with respect to who you'd gotten your investment products and services from already to date is that we are a fiduciary. We're a professional investment advisor. What is a fiduciary and why is it important? when Warren and Bill talk to brokers, they have what is called a suitability standard. And a suitability standard means only that it falls within your investment policy and falls under Public Act 20, which is the governing law of the state of Michigan that dictates what you can invest in. Other than that, anything that they can convince these two gentlemen that they need to buy, it's okay for them to do so under the law. In a fiduciary relationship, we are required to be on the same side of the table as you, meaning we're a service-based process in that we do not charge for transactions. Whether you do one transaction or 100, it's the same to us. So we are really there to sit on the same side of the table as you, serve as your advisor, serve as a fiduciary. As a matter of fact, we are required both by law and by contract to put your interests ahead of ours. So we're not here to sell you products, we're not here to sell you bonds, CDs, anything like that. We're here to be your advisor. Okay? And there's a lot of information. I go through this several times a month with people, so I kind of get into things. If I start going too fast or if there's any question, please feel free to jump in. This is the list of services that we provide for our clients, a summary that is to say, and the biggest part of this would probably be the cash flow review. And what we mean by that is most people we find 9 out of 10 times, they leave too much money in the bank. And that has a couple of issues. First of all, FDIC insurance doesn't cover all that money, okay? Second of all, while there are times, and 2022 was one of them, where the return on liquid accounts, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit here real briefly, the return on liquid accounts meets or exceeds that of a longer term portfolio that's sporadic. It goes up and it goes down. And so what we do is we try and what we call right size your portfolio, meaning we help you to identify the proper balance for putting into a longer term portfolio without sacrificing your liquidity, without having to have Warren worry about whether he's gonna be able to make payroll simply because we've got too much money in investments. And so we're gonna try and find that balance for you that meets the liquidity needs while still maintaining a good portfolio balance. And that's one of the ways in which we help you to maximize the return on your portfolio. Okay? And I've got this to Warren. If anybody wants to go into this in any more detail or has any question about it, please feel free to reach out. So I want to talk real briefly about where you are now and where we want to get you to, okay, based on what I just talked about. Anybody that has watched the news for more than 5 seconds in the last 6 months knows that we've been on an increasingly steep Fed raising rates, okay? The Fed is probably going to put one more rate increase in May, and then there isn't total agreement on this, but sometime between June of this year and June of next year, they've already said they're going to start cutting rates. Why is that important? It's important because when you're in a cash position, a money market position, as you can see here, about 83% of your portfolio spread across various vehicles is currently in what we would refer to as a cash position. When the Fed cuts rates, those are the first things to be affected. And we want to put you in a position where we have a longer term, we want to transition into big picture thinking. We want to think long term for the sake of the township, keeping in mind that it's those cash, we've already done the cash flow analysis. We've already figured out what your needs are for day-to-day and payroll and things like that. So we can feel more secure in investing more of those funds a little bit longer, okay? So if we take a look at, I was just talking about cash, money market, local government investment pools, so on and so forth. Those are all in that 83% that we were talking about. Short-term interest rates have topped out. The market's already anticipated the Fed increase in May. We're unlikely to get that much higher on things like Michigan class, bank accounts, so on and so forth. So we now have a rare opportunity where we can lock in higher term interest rates for a longer period of time. So that does a couple of things for you. First of all, it obviously generates more revenue that you can put towards expenses that you wouldn't have been able to before. The other thing is that it creates budgetary certainty. So when they do the budget, they're able to put more accurately a number into that budget as to what the investment earnings are going to be for 23, 24, 24, 25, so on and so forth. And that is when you're in a higher liquidity approach, you really can't do that because you don't know what those rates are going to be. You don't, from a month-to-month standpoint, you don't know what the rates are going to be. You don't know until you've gotten the interest payment what your earnings were. In a longer-term approach, we can predict, because those are fixed income securities, what those earnings are going to be over the course of the next 1, 2, 3 years. Okay? So this is an example of, over the last 20 years, what the average local government investment pool, which is Michigan Class, some of the other money market types of funds, their rates versus a 5-year U.S. Treasury approach. And what that does is that brings us to what we call the value of a plan. So as you can see here, except for a very short period of time in 07 and 08, over the course of 20 years, a longer-term approach has always outperformed a shorter-term approach. So this is a case of $50 million. Yours is a little bit smaller than that, but it's the same principle. We will help you to increase that return long-term over that of a more liquid approach. So the goal would then be to keep about 20%. I should preface this by saying that the assumption here is that the March 31st would have been the low point for the year. So you know, we don't know, I don't know yet what your balances are. That may change over the course of a year. That's one of the things that Warren and I will do going forward, is figuring out what that investable balance is. But in this case, we'd keep about, rather than the 83% that you have in a money market account, we would try to keep about 20% in a money market account. So we would then take those investments, spread them out over a 0 to 5 year. We've got a few investments that are already in place that go longer than 5 years. We'll keep an eye on those as well. The idea is, again, trying to put us in a position where we are not sacrificing liquidity. We're staying within Public Act 20, but we're doing what we can with that longer term approach to maximize that return on an annualized basis. So that'll be the first thing that we do, is figuring out, based what the cash flow needs are for the township over the course of a year, identifying what that low point is, and then putting those investments in a longer term approach. Questions? No? Okay. Couple of things here, and again, I'll have this for Warren. We've got some process stuff here, and then these are some of the economic indicators that we have been looking at. I talked a few minutes ago about this is actually the fastest interest rate cycle hike in 40 years. And so there are a lot of pundits. Part of the problem with the market right now, just as an FYI, is that nobody can agree as to what's next, not even the Fed. Even the Fed governors can't agree as to what they're gonna do next after this next rate hike. So there's an old adage that we try and work with, which is work with what you know. Okay, we're not gonna try and second guess the market. We're not gonna use a crystal ball and a Ouija board to try and figure out where rates are gonna be. We're gonna base it on your cash flow analysis. We're gonna base it on what the yields are now, and then go through that on a regular ongoing process. The second part of that process is regular communication with Warren, with Bill, and so forth, that we have regular discussions about changing cash flow needs, whether that's more or less that could potentially go into the portfolio, if there are needs for liquidity, for cash that you have, a capital project, an infrastructure emergency of some kind that you need to dip into that. We'll know about that well ahead of time, so we can address that with respect to how we invest the portfolio. Okay? That's it. Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question, and you may have covered it or it may have been in the notes, but how is it exactly that you get paid?
We are a service-based organization. So as you know, you pay for any financial transaction that you do, whether you see the fees or you don't see the fees. When Warren and Bill do a transaction with a broker, the fees are built into that transaction and they don't even know what they are. Ours is a standard, straightforward tenth of 1% of the assets under management. And as I said, when the reason that is more, is a better opportunity for you is because we're not transaction-based. And so whether we do one transaction on your behalf or 100, you pay the same.
Anyone else have anything? No? Okay. Usually at this time, I would open the floor for public comment, but we have no public, so we'll dispense with that. And we'll move on. If we've already kind of had a little board discussion opportunity, anybody, anything further? Otherwise, I'll just seek a motion at this time.
Wait a minute, I just wanted to back him up a little bit. He gave us, I think it was 8 or 10 different references. And I knew lots of these people from Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association and Kent District Treasurers Association. And I called them all, and after I got done with it, I was gonna take him down to the river to see if he walked on water. Because they gave him all a very good recommendation, and that counts. And they, we talked several questions, and he did well. We've done well in investments here, but this is not because we haven't done well, it's that we want to do better. And we feel that he's in the business all the time, we're not. But we're watching it all the time, but we think we can do much better with this man.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Jack, did you have something?
What is a sample of some of the investment vehicles you would put us in?
Everything that we would use on your behalf is allowable under Public Act 20. Okay, and Public Act 20 really requires pretty much the safest investments that are out there. Furthermore, we're also constrained by your own investment policy as well as any restrictions that Bill and Warren would want to put on us. Now, that being said, U.S. Treasury bonds, U.S. agency bonds such as Federal Home Loan, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those are names that you're probably familiar with. Michigan municipal bonds, which are allowable under Public Act 20, and short-term, very high-rated commercial paper. That makes up about 90% of what our typical portfolio would look like. Every once in a while, a bank will come along, a local bank, and we have no issue with this. We actually encourage it. A local bank will come along and they'll try and make an effort to adjust the rate so that it matches that of a treasury or that of an agency. And again, that's something that Warren and Bill and I will talk about when we go to move into those. And, that's about it. Money market funds that are made up of those types of investments, it's very restrictive.
Thank you.
Sue?
I had a chance to chat with Warren today, and he answered every one of my questions. So I just wanted to, a couple of things. I wanted to find out how it meshed with our audit, and also how the reporting would take place. And Warren said on our agenda tonight, you'll see that we have the investment report, but that's monthly. And so Warren said he didn't know whether it would be monthly or quarterly, but somewhere along the line, we'll get some kind of investment report.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I think that's all.
Did we leave that kind of open-ended? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly?
Oh, I'm sorry. It can be whichever one you want.
Okay.
We typically provide, there'll be 2 reports that you actually get, which is, again, another check and balance against the work that we do. We typically recommend the use of a central custodial bank, which is a Michigan bank that their only job is to hold your investments, process transactions on your behalf, and so forth. Since we're not a bank, we can't do that. So you'll get information from them that'll show all the transactions, it'll show all of your investments, it'll show all of the market value each month for those transactions. You mentioned your audit. One of the things auditors like to see is they like to see the market value of your investments as of your fiscal year end. GASB regulations, in case you have to sell literally everything that the township owns, how much money could you get for it? It's just one of those things that GASB likes to come up with because they have nothing else to do, I guess. So that being said, the market value will show for each month. You'll also get a monthly report from us where we show yield to maturity, we show asset allocation. The summary page, if you want to take a glance back at this, it kind of looks like this. It shows a summary of what your asset allocation is, which is the pie graph. It shows your maturity distribution on how far out the investments go, what you have in cash, and then there will also be summarization of all your transactions, so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, a lot of folks take that front page, and Warren, I can send you a copy of that if I haven't already. They take that front page, and rather than Warren having to reconcile everything each month and doing it by hand, they're now going to be able to just take that front page, and that's the summary of our investments, and they just drop that right into the board report. So that's actually going to save Warren some time as well from a reconcilement bookkeeping standpoint.
Well, I, for one, and we're only here for 2 more years, or a year and a half, I don't want to be inundated with things that I don't understand. So if you can look at how concise our investment report is right now, I personally would I'd like to be informed, because we've never put our money somewhere where in this type of a program. But quarterly would be fine with me, 1 page.
I did look at, Warren was kind enough to send me the investment report for March 31st, which is where I'd gotten this page from. I just put it into our format. And we're actually, and please don't repeat this because I'm not supposed to be telling people yet, but we're actually bringing a new system on this year. It's called Clearwater, and it's the top of the line reporting software in this industry. And one of the things that it will allow us to do is that it'll allow us to completely customize whatever reporting that you want to have, however you want to summarize things, and so on and so forth. So we can put it in exactly the format you want and run it as often as you'd like.
Well, there's a format that Warren and Cameron want, but I think that something that is a good summary.
Sure.
Well, this would be wonderful, very easy to read.
And one of the things that I do, just to follow up on that, one of the things that we do as part of our service is that I will meet quarterly with Bill and Warren, and with they'll see a summary page just like what we're looking at right now. We talk about the economy and the market and any recommendations that we have for changes in the investment portfolio. This is not a once and done type of thing. There's an ongoing process with respect to how we make investment recommendations. But we provide our clients with a summary page just like this one that they'll get on a quarterly basis as well. So that could be perfect for just providing to the board members.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if we're all set, I'd seek a motion at this time.
I move to approve entering into an agreement with Meter Public Funds for investment management as presented.
Support.
Thank you, Kathy. Support from Frank. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brinkman.
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill.
Yes?
Mr. Pfaff.
Yes.
Ms. Beatty.
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn.
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes. Mr. Coleman.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you
You're
very
good.
much.
Thank you all very much. Yes, sir.
Okay, item B is to provide a second reading and consider amendments to the Code of Ordinances with regards to animals. Cameron?
Why'd you look at Bill? You said animals and you look at Bill.
No, well, it could just go down.
We'll make it through the meeting somehow. I am going to turn it over to Bill. The series of next 3 are the ordinances that we have looked at as a first reading last meeting, and now we're looking at a second reading and consideration for approval. Bill and Scott has joined us for one last meeting before he leaves us at the end of this week. But they're going to go through these 3 ordinances and describe what we're trying to attempt here, or attempting to change here.
Ready for me? Okay, well, here I come. So I'm going to talk about the animals ordinance to amend. Then we're done with that. Deputy Scott there will talk about the next 2. But as it says in my memo, in June of last year, Kent County adopted an animal ordinance. I think some of you found out that was presented to you at supervisors and managers luncheon not too long ago. In order for them to do animal control in the township, they require that they'll do it for communities that do not have an animal control ordinance. And that can be in many varieties of regulations. But what it boils down to, in our code of ordinances, not the zoning, code of ordinances is where we cannot have an animals ordinance. We have chapter 6, animals. Three basic things are in there, three rules. One is the limitation on the number of dogs and cats, so it's limited to 3 each. We've always had that. There's a regulation on barking dogs, and there's another regulation on dog waste. Those are not things that the animal control officers would enforce, but they still require, we can't have an animal ordinance addressing those specific to that. So, working with Bloom Sluggett, our attorneys, who are doing this with many of their client municipalities, we've come up with just relocating those into other parts of other ordinances. But that includes rescinding chapter 6, animals, the labeling thing. We're proposing in this ordinance to amend to move barking dogs to the noise ordinance, to move dog waste to the environmental ordinance, chapter 16. And the other one, limitation of dogs and cats, we're gonna propose to put that in the zoning ordinance, which the planning commission will be considering tomorrow evening. In the zoning ordinance, we have a section called animals, and in there we have, talks about chickens, farm animals, domestic animals. We're gonna stick it in there. So it's okay to have that stuff in the zoning ordinance, but to have an animal ordinance in the code, that's what kind of gets it out of sync with the county. So we're doing this to address that so they can do animal control in the township. So what you have before you is an ordinance to amend that lays out all those steps. And I will note there is one other minor thing we're doing to the Parks and Recreation ordinance and the Code of Ordinances, and that is relative to First Luce Park. That's the one park we don't allow dogs unless it's a service dog. We allow dogs in all of our other parks. So the attorney has had us add just a general clause in there that says that this is not to supersede any other regulatory ordinances. It's some legal information they wanted us to have in there. So that's what is proposed tonight, ordinance to amend to do those things, except for the limitation of dogs and cats. That'll be coming to you after the Planning Commission makes a recommendation as part of the zoning process, because that's Planning Commission and Board. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
And we can't approve it tonight, correct? Or do we need to wait for the planning commission, or can we just go ahead and approve it, and then we really don't need the planning commission, right?
Two things. The planning commission, the only thing that involves the planning commission is the one thing about the limitations of dogs and cats. All these other things in the code of ordinances and this ordinance to amend, that's strictly board. So you're being asked to approve those tonight. You'll just have a follow-up action to take on one of the items.
Okay, Jack, do you have something?
So there, excuse me, there's no duplication in terms of the county's ordinance and ours. Is
Correct.
that correct? Okay.
Okay, anyone else have anything on this?
So basically, we're saving the part that says you can only have this many dogs or cats for the zoning. That would be after the zoning.
That has to go to the PC first, and then it'll come back to us eventually for us to,
Okay.
yes, two-stepper there.
Correct.
Anybody else? Okay, I guess if we're done with our discussion, I'd seek a motion at this time.
I move to approve the amendments to the Code of Ordinances regarding animals as presented.
Thank you, Jack. Support?
Support.
Thank you, Susan. Roll call vote, please.
Hey, Mrs. Merrill?
Yes.
Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes. Mr. Coleman?
Yes. Okay, item C is the second reading and to consider amendments to the Code of Ordinances for begging and soliciting. Are you gonna just turn over to Scott? Scott?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So, many municipalities used to have a begging and soliciting ordinance that had some history to it. As of recently, within the last couple of years, and some case law that came through, the begging and soliciting ordinances have been approved by many municipalities here in Grand Rapids, Kent County area. So what this ordinance does is it's made for safety for both people who are panhandling and for the general public. Most of what this does is to keep people from being aggressively solicited by panhandlers. So instance that we would come across would be someone walking out, say at a stoplight, and trying to get money from people out of cars, banging on their windows, being aggressive in that manner, or on the sidewalk in front of a business. It's a more reactive ordinance that we wouldn't be able to seek out. It would be someone calling us and saying, hey, I just had a run-in with a panhandler where he's banging on my window, or he won't stop following me, asking for money, and he's continuing doing this. That's what this ordinance covers. It's a gray area between they're in a public space and they're allowed to have free speech. But when it gets to the point where it's aggressive in a manner where someone doesn't feel safe, or it's causing a traffic obstruction, that's where this ordinance would cover it.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Anybody have anything for Scott on this item? Susan? Ooh,
The water glass, almost, yes. Scott, this is a relatively new subject for us. So do you think of beggars or panhandler people going into our parks? Will they venture into places like that?
We have had one gentleman that was in many of our parks, but he wasn't an aggressive panhandler. It was more of a setting up camp, trespassing type of issue that we had to deal with. I don't think Plainfield we get some once in a while, but what we're seeing is Grand Rapids has had a large boom in homeless population that is starting to spread out.
So would they be considered beggars under our new,
So it defines somebody asking for money, so soliciting money from people, whether they're in a move, like one of the rules in here is you can't solicit from someone in a moving vehicle. So that covers people that are driving down the highway or any type of road, stopped at a stoplight, and they're coming out into traffic way. Sometimes you'll see them getting money out of someone's car when the green light turns and people are trying to get around them, causing a traffic backup. This also covers, I think it's 15 feet from any public entrance to any building, including residences. So that would help curb that where people are standing outside in front of a business. We would also have the state law of trespassing. But when you get to the point where, like downtown Comstock, where it's a public sidewalk, that's where this gray area covers it.
okay, anyone else?
Just a clarifying question, I guess. So if they are at a corner holding a sign and not aggressive, not approaching car, they are free to do that?
Correct, yes.
Anyone else? Okay. So if we're all set, I'd seek a motion at this time.
I move to approve the amendments to Code of Ordinances regarding begging and soliciting as presented.
Support.
Thank you, Jack. Support from Frank. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Ms. Beatty?
Yes?
Mrs. Merrill?
yes,
Mr. Hagedorn?
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman?
Yes.
Ms. Postmas? Yes, and Mr. Coleman?
Yes. Okay, item D is our second reading and consider amendments to the Code of Ordinances for obstructions in the right-of-way.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
So this ordinance came about last year when I was running into, during the summer / mostly in the fall, constant inflow of complaints regarding whether it was leaves or landscaping material being dumped in the streets during people doing their landscaping or pushing their leaves out into the streets. Most of those I found were residents that came from either a city municipality or somewhere that had leaf pickup, that would have the street sweepers come by and pick up the leaves out of the road. So they thought that Plainfield Township did this and they would just shove them all out in the road, or the people just didn't care and wanted them out in the road because they would eventually go away. So we didn't have, I found the hole in the ordinances that we didn't have an ordinance specifically against it. Road Commission could deal with it, but I found that they had bigger fish to fry, so it was still left up to me. So this ordinance would cover things such as landscaping materials, brush, sticks, leaves, and of course snow from being in a travel lane of a roadway.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this one from anybody? No? If not, I'd seek a motion.
Move to approve the amendments to the Code of Ordinances regarding obstruction in the right-of-way as presented.
I'll support that.
Thank you, Kathy. Support from Bill. Roll call vote, please.
And Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill?
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes.
Okay, item E. Thank you, Scott. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Item E is to consider the removal of the storm siren located at the Comstock Park Library. Cameron?
Okay, thank you. So this is an issue that Chief McKellar's brought to my attention at least over a year ago, that our storm siren system is aging and is in need of more frequent repair or even possibly replacement. Beyond that, beyond the expense of the actual equipment that we own, the county is changing the system that operates it. And so there would be an additional cost for us to bear if we wanted to continue using it into the future to be on the new system. That's kind of been in the back of our minds and trying to figure out how best to deal with that. Meanwhile, Kent County is working on some park improvements in Dwight Liddell Park and Comstock Park. And one of the improvements they want to make requires us to do something different with the wiring for the siren there that's actually in their park. We're to the point where if we want to keep it, we could relocate that siren to probably closer to the library building. We could bury the wires somehow, there'd be a cost to that, or we could just start decommissioning the system. So that's kind of prompted the question for you, and this is really a public policy question. You know, what is the value of the storm siren system? Has it outlived its general usefulness in the age where everyone's carrying one of these now that does a lot of the same functions? Or does it still have value to the community? So a number of ways we could go with this. We could just decommission that one siren, keep the others for now. We could move that siren knowing that we may be decommissioning them all in a few years. Or you could say this is something that's of absolute necessity to the community, and we're willing to pay, and it's probably in the tune of tens of thousands of dollars to upgrade this system throughout our system, throughout the township. And that's going to be near term in the next couple of years that we'd have to look at that expense. So bringing this to you tonight, if you need more time to make a final decision, that's fine, but need to make sure that you're aware of the full implication. It's not just one siren. We're talking about the entire system throughout the township is seeing its age, running into more and more that are working sporadically. Chief can go in better details on the actual serviceability of each siren, but the initial ask tonight is for the Comstock Park Library siren, and then just so you have the bigger picture of all the other sirens that pertain to this as well.
Okay, thank you. Chief, you may want to, I just have this feeling that you're going to be at the podium before you know it.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
So let's give him just a split second. You know, he moves a little gingerly sometimes. Are you ready?
I'm here.
Okay, Frank, go for
well, I
it.
guess, sure. So I'm first. So Chief, that, I did want to ask your opinion. I remember growing up with those sirens. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, we all have smartphones now. I don't get stuck in that, you know, when I was a kid deal. We all have smartphones now. So I'm asking you, I guess, is this necessary, or do we just use our smartphones and we have plenty of warning, and just want to keep everybody safe in Plainfield Township?
Our warning sirens are basically designed for warning people that are outside. They have about a 3-mile radius. That's why we have about 11 sirens throughout the township. But they're I think our newest one is a 2001, so they're over 20 years old. I don't know what our oldest one is, age-wise. I did talk with one of the vendors today about it. They can be upgraded at a cost, pretty substantial cost. I have 3 right now that are in repair with each one running about $14,000 a piece for repair. So this is the time to make that decision. Are we going to continue? We're going to phase them out as they start to die? Or are we going to throw a bucket of money at them? So with cell phones and with the weather radios that you can purchase, you're well protected. Just for an example, the tornado that went through last year in Gaylord, they had about a 10-minute advance notice that went out on cell phones. They don't have a siren in the county up there. And there were very minimal injuries, and I don't believe there was a death accounted for up there. So, and it hit downtown Gaylord, so.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief McKellar hit on a point too. At one point when we were talking about it, we were talking about the extreme cost of these sirens. And I think he pointed out, you know, we could start a program, if there was really a concern, we could start a program and hand out portable weather radios for a whole lot cheaper than fixing these sirens. That's how much cost is going into them. You know, if there's a concern that someone doesn't have a smartphone or doesn't have it set right, you know, we could, like we do with smoke detectors, hand out little portable weather radios if there was a major concern there.
Can I jump out of order here a little bit? So Kent County Emergency Management Services, the sheriff's office, I guess before this popped up on our agenda, I would have been under the impression that those sirens may have belonged to them. They control them, they run them, right?
They trigger them. We
Yeah.
own them.
Interesting.
Because I tried to get them to take them over, but
Well,
they didn't want that investment.
good move on their part, right?
Yeah, so, no, there's townships within the county that does not have a single siren.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yep.
Do our surrounding townships, does Alpine,
They have Alpine has a couple. I
Algoma?
believe Cannon might have one, but once you get north, and towards the east, I've seen the map once and I can't, but there are several townships throughout the county that don't have a single siren. So.
Okay, okay. Sorry, didn't mean to. Jack, do you have anything?
I think we should phase them out, but I'm more concerned with the communication with the public. I think it's important that we try to instruct the public as to how they can get emergency on their cell phone. And I'm not sure how that can be done, but I think phasing them out, these sirens belong to another era, so, you know.
Agreed. Susan?
I agree with the phasing out. I was sort of trying to imagine different age groups and how they would handle the cell phone, relying on a cell phone. And perhaps there's an age group that doesn't do well with the cell phone, but a lot of them have televisions, and that I think some people leave them on all the time. And so I thought that was enough coverage to go ahead and phase them.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen, you have anything? Kathy?
All things being relative, Frank, you are the kid up here.
Oh, I like that. How about you?
So it's a change of the times, let me just say. And I'm curious if there's been any research as to who is really dependent on it. And I love what you said, Cameron, about doing good education and offering for those seniors or whoever doesn't have a cell phone, that we could do that. So we do all of our part to get the word out. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Bill, do you have anything?
Well, I don't think we're in line for any air raids anymore, but that's what they used to use for primarily back a few years ago. But
Bill, I know that you have a cell phone, so it's for every age, right?
yeah, sometimes I get it to working good. We're getting better with it now, though, Frank. It's, remember, I've done computers and written computer programs with the Herman Hollerith 80-digit cards. You remember those? a long time ago. Well, what's gonna happen is that we do have a tornado, and we don't get it out, then we're damned. But if it goes good, then we're okay, you know, but I don't know. I would say it's a flip of the coin.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so are we, to Cameron's point, when we started this, are we just gonna, do we want to talk about this more? Do we want to just have a motion at this time? You know, my personal opinion is they've well served themselves, they're past their time. So, yes, we need to do public education on, we're doing that, here's your alternatives, those kinds of things. So-
And then we're just taking this, because this is the one we're just considering tonight. We're just considering the one.
Yes,
So then we'll just take it on a need basis then. When the next one goes, we'll do it. We're just, because this is just looks like one tonight.
You gotta remember, there's also a cost to decommission these too.
Oh,
For about 2,000.
Okay, you didn't tell us
There's
that.
about 2,000, it's about a $2,000 vendor, from what the vendor told me today, just to take them down.
Just let it
and
rust,
remove the
just let
bulb.
it rust out and then
So
in the fall.
Can't do that, it's a false
Are you
perception.
suggesting there might be
Shotgun.
some economy of scale if we do them all at once, or?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, so-
I didn't venture that way. 'cause
Kind of like, yeah.
well, the
so-
Comstock Park one that we're considering tonight, though, has to go because we're not on our own property, right?
Right, we need
So-
to move it or decommission it, either way.
Okay, so 2,000 to decommission,
Well,
about, is that what you said?
That was it, that was just in passing, talking with the vendor today, how much it would be to take it out and take the pole down. And he had said even store it, because it's still, that's still a good working one, and maybe we can do something with it.
Put it in the museum.
Why don't you ask the Historical Society if they want it?
there we go. Okay, motion,
Sorry. I move to approve the removal of the storm siren located at the Comstock Park Library as presented.
thank you, Frank. Support?
Support.
Thank you, Kathy. Roll call vote, please.
Hey, Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes?
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill,
yes.
Mr. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Postma, yes.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Cameron, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. A few items just to bring to your attention before we leave tonight. Our next meeting on May 8. Don't forget, we're doing a joint meeting with the Planning Commission. Same time, so you guys have it easy. It's on your night, your time. It's the Planning Commission that's got to adjust. Jack, you had to show up for both of them anyway, so. So get together, start talking about the master plan. Master plan survey has gone out in the last newsletter. Hopefully you all read that and saw that the survey is out. So encourage your friends and neighbors to take the survey. The more input, the more robust the data will be, and better we can use that to form the next master plan. Couple other things. Construction season is upon us, and I was driving up Pine Island last week, and actually I was taken aback how fast things are moving. We've only been at it a couple of weeks, but that water main is already in past 9 Mile and up, and so I thought we'd I'm not gonna go through all of them that we've got here, because we have quite a list of projects, but some of the more prominent ones that I'm seeing residents start to ask about, 10 Mile and Pine Island. So a lot of movement already on these projects. You're probably familiar with the way Pride Newhoff lays out their project mapping. Blue is water main that's already been, the installation is complete of the public water main. Red is yet to be done. So this project, they've got 2 crews. So they've got a crew working over here, a crew working over here. This is the project on 10 Mile that was bid with the road commission because they're reconstructing the road. They're smoothing out some hills in the area, so it's a bigger project than a typical just installing a water main along a road. So the project will take just a little bit longer, but they've made this much progress already since basically since the beginning of the month. So that one is moving along quite nicely. It'll still be a couple of months because of that road reconstruction before this thing is wrapped up and the road is open both ways to traffic again. And then the other one I mentioned was Pine Island. Pine Island is moving along nicely too. So as I was saying, they've already punched past 9 Mile. So our water tower is right here. They've already connected up all the way to here. So there'll be water main along the frontage road that's all these homes are along down here. And then the second water main goes up along here, connects up to the project up on 10 Mile. So making good progress there as well. Again, this one is proposed to, if they stay on track, looks like in their notes, this one is lower down. It says it will be done by probably late August. So, and if you go to their website, and it's linked to our website too, so you can find it easily, but got great photos of the project in action. Again, direct your neighbors to this if they've got questions or other residents. Brian Newhoff has done a great job of documenting this and helping residents to understand what the progress is. So you can see, looking south on Pine Island here, you can see the construction using their drone to take images as they go. But I really appreciate the work they're doing to keep everyone up to date. You'll see that every week they update this with the latest, what they've done this past week, what's coming up next week, what the long-term forecast is for the project. So anytime you see online or talking to someone, if a resident has a question, please direct them to this website, and it has all the information. If people ask me, this is where I go. So I don't have some inside knowledge necessarily that's beyond what's on this website, generally speaking. If I need something more up to date than what's on here, maybe I'll call Kevin Gritters, but other than that, this is my resource as well. So the last thing I had on my list, you may have noticed walking in that we've got a little project of our own out front. So we had a little brick retaining wall out front of the building here. It probably could have been constructed differently. That's for liability reasons, that's all I'm gonna say. But it started to collapse last fall, and so we have taken it all down and we're starting over. We're gonna use a little different system this time. It's gonna be more of a true retaining wall, larger stacked block type of look, which is on order, which is why it's sitting there deconstructed and not the new piece in place yet. So that'll be coming as soon as the materials arrive in the next couple of weeks here. It'll look a little different, but should be far more secure. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Cameron. Board comments at this time. Bill, you want to start us off?
Yes, certainly. We're coming along good for the Memorial Day services. I have one spot open. I think I called Jack about it earlier.
I'll be out of town, Bill.
Okay, that's what I wanted to find out. But I've also got a call in for Pete McGregor too, so. But that's, it's coming along good. It should be a very patriotic event. Recommend that the board or our people come there because I think they'll like it real well.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, you have anything?
Thank you for doing that, Bill. I attended the Michigan Township Association conference last week. My best probably sessions that I went to was waste management, PFAS, and the Michigan Fire Marshal. So gave a lot of great information, a little scary information about fire and all that good stuff, but it was well attended. It was a huge conference, and I appreciate the opportunity to do the learning there.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen?
I'm all set.
All right. Susan?
Do we have any update on the repair at Northville? I've had 2 or 3 people sort of like rumoring that the road's going to be torn up, and I wonder what the communication is. And
So nothing official has been decided yet, so no word's gone out, but yes, the condition of the pavement was substandard, and so it probably will be milled up and repaved. We're still working through details.
And that's all, I'll just let them know that.
That the rumors have substance to them, yes.
Yes, I mean, I knew that it was going to, I just didn't know what the communication was going to be. And the ice cream social that we all like to attend and help out scooping ice cream for our seniors, it has been moved to August. So don't get too excited in June. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
Fine, thanks.
All right, thank you. Frank?
All set, thank you.
Okay. I will just ask this because it's where I left off. Bill, did we get confirmation on our replacement for Deputy Scott?
Yes. Oh, no, from the sheriff's department?
Yeah,
No. I talked to Lieutenant DeGroot. He's going to run up the chain to the sheriff. He's expecting everything will be fine, but I've not heard back from him yet. I don't think, have you, Cameron?
okay, just to share with you guys, we interviewed 3 candidates that came up from the sheriff's office interviews prior to ours. And we did select someone. But I guess we're waiting for the,
We can talk about it. We just, okay, so we had 3 candidates, and so we selected one of them that we think will fit in very well with Jake and our team and everything that we've been able to accomplish up to this point. Someone that has some good strength with ordinance enforcement experience as a deputy. And so we're hoping to find out this week, if all goes well, this person will get officially appointed by the sheriff, as we just mentioned, and hopefully can start either next Monday, May 1st, or Monday, May 8th at the latest. They're in the middle of payroll, so they're checking that out. But I think hopefully by the end of this week, we'll be able to announce names and more information. But it's going to be just a short, possibly short gap of time. Scott's last day is this Thursday. So, but anyways, we have someone lined up that we think is going to be a great fit.
there you go. That's all I have. So with that, we're adjourned.